Hello, Cataschool Cascadia. I'm Tracy Defoe, and it is Friday the 13th, always a lucky day for me. I don't know about you. And today we are lucky enough to be joined by Rich Sheridan at Ann Arbor, and I see Mike Rother has joined us too. So that's always fun. And we have Darren from New Zealand and Christophe from France. So we are spanning 14 time zones right now as we record our Friday Zoom. So that's great. Welcome, everybody. And Mark, over to you.
Many of you know, I've been out here with at Menlo all week, and I asked Rich if he could have the time to stop in and join us. And so I know we talk about Menlo a lot. Rich Sheridan, if you don't know, is the co-founder of Menlo Innovations. He's the author of the book Joy Inc. and Chief Joy Officer. And I know we talk about them quite a bit on here. So it's an opportunity for you all to get some insights from him.
Great to be with you all. Tracy, if it makes sense to do some introductory comments about Menlo itself.
Please do. Yes, not everybody will have
I
done
don't want
the
to presume that everybody on the call knows exactly what Menlo is or who we are and that sort of thing. So I'll just give a little bit of background about us. This is a place that has very intentionally created a culture focused on what we refer to as the business value of joy. Joy is a weird word to use in a business context ever. Certainly, it's a weird word in the software industry. Software is probably one of the most joyless industries out there. Just to prove the point, we are the ones who call the people we serve stupid users and then write dummies books for those poor people. And we just believed it could be different. And so 25 years ago, we founded Menlo with a crazy big mission that we can't possibly do on our own, all by ourselves, and that is to end human suffering in the world as it relates to technology. And we do it with a culture, with a set of practices, with a process. There's some things we had to do very differently in order to accomplish the goals we were trying to accomplish. One is to figure out how exactly we can design software that will actually delight the people it's intended to serve, the end users of the software. So we invented an entire practice we call high-tech anthropology. A lot of people ask us why a software team would need anthropologists on their team. And this community won't be surprised that when we look at software, generally speaking, it's going to be used by humans. Wouldn't it be neat to study those humans in their native environment, like an anthropologist would? Learn their workflow, their habits, their goals as human beings.
It's called grasping the current condition and understanding the challenge.
Yeah, and going to the Gemba and doing it more through observation than through interview. Watching the mistakes be made, design those mistakes out of the system, learn what problems are actually trying to be solved, but really honoring the people who one day use the software we're going to design and build. And then the other part is the unusual practice of our software team. The part that probably fascinates the world a lot about us is that our work is done in pairs here. 2 people, 1 computer all day long. Those pairs are assigned and we switch them at least every 5 working days. It all happens in a big open room. I'll show it to you just briefly here because I can, just so it's not theoretical. It is a Friday afternoon, so it'll be a little bit emptier, but this is Menlo. Oh, yeah, it's also, 3 o'clock is walkies time for us, so we can talk about that practice in a second. Yeah, they're just coming back. So, but that is the room we work in. It's we're kind of a crazy software company now, tech firm, because we are in the office 5 days a week. That's it's unheard of. Pairs are sitting next to one another. It's a very different kind of workspace as well. People don't have their own desk, table, chair, or computer to call their own. People go to the work doesn't come to the people. So if you're on the Harrison project, you go to the set of computers that are outfitted for Harrison. If next week you're on the Patterson project, you're going to move to a different spot with a different pair partner and be on that project. And all of this in our visual management system gets a lot of attention. We use handwritten index cards to do major league projects. It's pinned up on the wall. monitor status with sticky dots and yarn and that sort of thing. So that's probably enough for now.
I'll just add one thing is, and this has become my mantra, and you all, if you hear my keynotes, you've heard this come up a few times. They started with the culture they wanted to create and then engineered the culture into the work design rather than the other way around.
Yeah, that's true. We do have three core values that we ascribe to. One is helping others succeed. So the pairing aspect is a lot about helping your pair partner. It has great influence on how we interview as well. Can talk about interview practices if you're interested, and then run the experiment, which is our call it less informed version of kata, and then make mistakes sooner, which is an idea of taking action over taking a meeting. Try stuff and see if it works, and if it doesn't, what's the next target condition you'll go after?
And you can translate all of that into TPS principles that apply the same philosophies, just in different ways. So who's fascinated enough to have the courage to speak up and to ask something?
Mary, go ahead.
I'm also intrigued by your job title there. So can you tell me a little bit more about what the Chief Joy Officer does?
Yeah, so my business card does not say Chief Joy Officer on it. It says CEO and Chief Storyteller. Chief Joy Officer is probably more of a mindset here, and it's expected that joy is everywhere in the organization. We define joy. We make it very practical. It's purpose driven. We talk about who do we serve and what would delight look like for them. The tangible joy we're going after is the joy we are creating in the world with the work that we do. But we don't believe you could make joy out in the world without having some joy in the room. And joy is a much longer arc than happiness is. So we are not happy every minute of every day. That would require medication. But joy is this arc of doing really great work for over a long period of time, creating a great outcome, and then getting people to come back and say what they never say about software, but we get it all the time. I love this software. You made my life better because of the work you did. And that's partly the design and partly the fact that the software just works because of all the quality practices we have, which starts with the pairing.
Laurel.
Hi, Rich.
Hello.
So a lot of things you just described, I remember reading about in the book many years ago. And I'm wondering, how do you keep it going over time without people just burning out, giving up, or thinking, we got this?
I think that's a great question. My view is that is where the chief storyteller part comes in. Storytelling is an act of leadership. We've got a bunch of new people that have joined here. I think one of the problems you run into in maintaining a culture of a long period of time is just the old people know what it's supposed to be like, but the people just joining don't really know. So we spend a lot of time here telling stories, and the context in which we can tell those stories is actually kind of interesting in its own right. It literally happened here while Mark and I were sitting here. 4 people walked in our front door. We do a tour a day here at least. Yesterday, there were 3 tours. So we get people coming from all over the world, literally, either virtually or in person, about 3,000 a year. We've been tracking it since 2013, and we've had like 27,000 visitors who've come. And what do? On those tours, we tell stories. What's intriguing about the storytelling in those tours is there's 2 aspects to it. I used to lead a lot of the tours, and the team saw me becoming a tower of knowledge on storytelling. So they started pairing me with Menlonians. And at first, they were kind of quiet, and they just listened to me tell the stories. After a while, they got better at it, and they learned to tell stories themselves. But typically, they were telling my stories, stories I would share. But what was fun at a certain point was they started telling their stories. And I started listening to them, and I realized there's so many stories going on and out in our room that I was unaware of. And Mark just told one today about how kata is getting in. I wouldn't have seen that if Mark hadn't seen it. So we've built this sort of cohort of storytellers here. Everybody is expected to be able to tell a story here, and stories of the past, both of triumph and tragedy, and visionary stories of the future. And because we've developed that culture for such a long period of time, we become active curators of stories. I call it lucid storytelling, where when we're in it, Mark sort of just as an example of this, I mean, he sees Dan and Adam working through a problem. He hears some Toyota Kata language. He captures that story. I will tell you, this is going to be a Menlo story. And they get told over and over again. And I think that's what keeps it fresh here.
Thank you.
Maria.
On that same theme of stories, what's the story behind the index cards and yarn? And I'm a fan of manual paper things too, but how does that aid in problem solving?
Yeah, you can imagine when our visitors come here and see we plan massive software projects, just to give you a sense of the kind of projects we work on, because this is not a small project company. We're in the fifth year of a project we are doing for NASA for probably the most famous spacecraft they've launched since James Webb. It's called IMAP. It'll sit between the Earth and the Sun for the next 20 years. Our team over the last 5 years has built all the software the researchers will use for the data that's collected from that. And it was all planned with handwritten index cards. And a lot of people come in and they see that, because nice thing about that particular project is it is a public works project, so we can actually talk about it, share it, tell what we're doing, even dive into the details. And they look at us and they're like, you do this with paper, handwritten paper.
Agile Unplugged. I heard that this week and I loved it.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. Um, and they ask us why. I mean, we're a software company. Why aren't we using software? And our simple answer is we choose the tools we believe work better for humans. And humans are visual, tactile creatures. There's been a lot of research that shows that the cognition that occurs when pen goes to paper is radically different than the cognition that occurs when you do a cut and paste. And we love the index card format. In our world, it's 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. That's the size we standardized on 25 years ago. And the point of the size of the card is one sort of like A3, in the sense that you can't write a long story on a small index card, so you have to write a short story. And short stories are harder. It's the old Mark Twain adage, I was going to write you a short story, but I didn't have time, so I wrote you a long one. You actually have to think, well, what are the key elements here? And guess what? The beautiful thing about a short story card is people actually read it.
I'd like to just get a little bit in because the structure of that card is really special to me, because the first line describes how this block of code is going to enable a user to do something. It's about enabling someone. And I have overheard developers talking about their fictional persona as a person in terms of how they would respond to this. So it's a real thing, even though it's not a real person, that person represents the users this software is targeted for.
Yeah, and it's funny, I said storytelling earlier, and this index card we use, we call a story card. I mean, that's our lingo for it. And each card does tell a story of what is the outcome you're trying to produce. It doesn't tell you the how. It will tell you the why.
It's a target condition.
Yep.
It describes how the process should work, but it doesn't work that way right now.
And perhaps most importantly, it is not written in technical ease. The programmers understand how to, use it to drive the coding, but it's not add 5 tables to the database, which would have no meaning to a business sponsor. Like, they wouldn't be able to say, I don't know, do you need 5 tables? Do you need 7 tables? Do you need 8 tables? Do you need 0 tables? Why do you need a database at all? None of that is entering into the picture of a story card. It's simply describing, as Mark said, a target condition. Once we finish this work, the user will be able to accomplish this task.
The other thing I'll add is the physical wall allows people to stand shoulder to shoulder looking at what's going on as an objective truth, rather than facing each other and arguing about what the truth is. And I think that was my main, coming out of here the first time I was here. And that's become one of my mantras ever since.
Before we leave the wall, do you want to explain the string that shows time?
Sure. Yeah. Again, I can't resist. So let me just take you out in the room just because
Go for it.
it's so much easier to show it and talk about it rather than just describe it in words, just because we have the opportunity to do that. Here's one of the tour groups here. So speaking of the Harrison Project, here is what we affectionately refer to. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. This is what we affectionately refer to as the Work Authorization Board for the Harrison Project. Just to give you a sense, this is the name of the project. We named it after George Harrison because this is the sun-based satellite, and George Harrison had a very famous song called Here Comes the Sun. So we always have fun with our project names. Here are the developer pairs that are working on things. Again, this could have been team 1, team 2, team 3. That's boring. We choose fun. So it's the skeleton team, the biathlon team, and the curling team. You can probably gather the theme this week. Here's the cards they're working on. This, in this case, is Karn and Evan. And they have these cards in their lane. And this project has a Tuesday to Monday cadence. A lot of people wonder, why would you start a project on Tuesday? Why not start all projects on Monday? The reason is because we ask our client, when do you want to meet with us for what's called a show and tell? Again, I'm trying to link up stuff here. So every project ends on show and tell day. This particular client can meet with us on Mondays. And so the cards then are placed next to the day we believe they will complete based on the estimate of hours they think it will take this card to work. So the Tuesday cards this team thinks it complete is the 2-hour kickoff meeting and this 2-hour bug card. Then on Wednesday, this 8-hour card should complete. They would use the rest of the day, Tuesday, part of the day, Wednesday. So this card is placed next to Wednesday. So the way the board is constructed, it's pretty easy to see how we're doing. And then I love to torture PMI folks with this. PMI would call this piece of yarn a scheduled performance index. We just call it a piece of yarn. But the yarn moves down the board like a clock. And we have completed Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We're in the day Friday. So everything above the yarn should be completed by now if we're where we thought we would be based on our estimates. The color-coded sticky dot tells the story of the card. Yellow, for example, says that's what we're working on right now. Orange, and I'm hoping I'm doing this pretty well for you guys. Orange says we think we're done. It's a call to the QA team to come and check the work. Green says QA check the work, and it is in fact ready for show and tell. And red says we got stuck. So we're going to move on to the next card. The board is laid out such that it instantly communicates, are we ahead? Are we behind? Are we on track? Without having to go stop everybody and ask them for a status update on all the cards they're associated with. Simple question to you guys. Did that actually work?
Yes, yeah, we saw it. It wasn't even too shaky. I can tell you've done it before. Mutaz has had his hand up for a while. I'm gonna let you ask a question, Mutaz.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Richard. I appreciate like what you were showing, but from the end user perspective, the customers who use your software, they say, we love your software. What makes you stand out from the crowd, like competitive advantage? What kind of extra value you are delivering that other companies are not, you know?
Yeah, so one of the differences here, and you should probably understand a little bit of my life story in order to understand the context of my answer. My life is almost evenly divided now between doing things the regular, traditional way of software development and now the Menlo way. So I've been in the industry for a little over 50 years, and it's been about 25 years on each side of that equation. So I'm going to describe the old way of doing things that got me very frustrated. And then I surveyed the industry and realized the whole world's like this, and you guys will understand this just from your own personal experience. We would get done with some piece of software we were trying to build for the world in the old method of doing things. We would usually sit around in a room like I'm sitting in now with whiteboards and smart people and say, I think it'd be really cool if it worked like this. I think we should make it work like this. But we had no idea what would actually work for the end users, and we never asked them. And it felt it was actually discouraged to ask end users what they thought because everybody be like, oh, my gosh, we'd be going off in 100 different directions if we ask the end users what they want. So let's just tell them what they need. And so you've probably all used a piece of software somewhere in your life where your conclusion is, oh my God, did anybody ever watch somebody like me use the stuff you're asking me to use? And the answer is probably not. And we see examples of this everywhere in our lives where we're using something and it just doesn't work the way we'd expect. It's got stupid words on the screen that don't make sense to us. And what's amazing is, and you guys have probably run into this in your world of work, is that the big name companies, we'll call it SAP, Salesforce, Epic, the electronic medical record systems, if you go into a healthcare system and ask the typical nurse or doctor about Epic, the answer is guaranteed. I hate this. It doesn't do what I need. I don't understand how to use it. It doesn't do what I need it to do. Well, that's where our anthropology team comes in. We've literally taken existing Epic implementations and taken users from I hate this to I love this simply because we're out there in the world studying them as anthropologists would, observing their behaviors, finding their mistakes, designing the mistakes out of the system, learning the vocabulary and injecting their vocabulary into the software. I mean, we're doing a really big project for a Salesforce project for an insurance company right now. And I've forgotten the exact language, but Salesforce calls every entry in there, say they call it an opportunity, and this insurance company calls it a quote. And as they were implementing Salesforce, the Salesforce implementers just told the insurance company, "Don't worry about it. You'll learn to call everything an opportunity eventually." And it drove this, I mean, hundreds of users inside the system crazy because they had to change their vocabulary. And we came in and said, no, we're going to change Salesforce to call it a quote wherever it is. And you know, that's a simple construct. But too often we just, oh, they'll learn to love it. We'll send them to training classes. You know, there's a common phrase in software, which is RTFM, read the friggin' manual. And like software shouldn't need, it's like Don Norman wrote a great book called The Design of Everyday Things, and he highlighted doors, poorly designed doors that, and you've probably all had this experience from time to time when you go up to a door and you push it, and it, you know, and suddenly you see this big sign that says pull, and you feel like an idiot, and you didn't read the user manual for the door. Well, Don Norman says it simply: a door shouldn't need a user manual. A door, by its very design, should communicate as you approach it. Is it meant to be pushed or pulled? And if it doesn't, and you put a user manual on it, users will fail. They'll get frustrated with it. Well, the same thing happens all over the place in software. So that's one key difference between us and the rest of the world is the high-tech anthropology practice. Probably the other key differences are programmers actually listen to our anthropologists. They don't just take it as strong suggestions. And then the second piece is the quality piece. The two people switching the pairs every 5 days results in an unprecedented quality of software that, quite frankly, I would have never believed was possible when we started Menlo. But I can say it now because it's true. We have had two software emergencies in 25 years. My old life, literally, I would just run from fire to fire to fire every single day.
Rishi from Niagara, Canada.
Thanks, Tracy, and thanks, Mark, for having this great opportunity. And Rich, speaking with you, I had a pleasure of joining one of your virtual tours, and hopefully in the future to be able to come and visit in person. A big admirer of your work over the years. Just wondering, what are the skills that you see are required to work in pairs, and where do people struggle?
Yeah, I would say the skills required to work in pairs are developable skills. So I would say what we have found over the years is that there isn't like a type of person that can pair and a type of person who can't. Generally speaking, what we have found over the years is by setting clear expectations in our environment of, and again, core value of helping others succeed, which we inject right into the interview process. People come in, and I would say that's the biggest part of it is this spirit of, I'm not here to demonstrate to you everything I know, but rather to, if there's something I know that you don't, for me to share it with you. And if there is something I don't know that you might, my role is to say, I don't know how to do this. And those are, again, teachable skills.
I don't know yet.
Yeah. And literally have posters in the room that say it's okay to say I don't know. And maybe we should add yet on there so we can get the kata yetis in here too. I love that idea. And so just a general spirit of cooperation and collaboration here. And once you get into that, and then we switch the pairs every 5 days, even if the pair partner you're with wasn't perfect at it, the next one's probably going to be slightly better or different and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Ari, thank you.
Hi, yes. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Rich. Something that you said about how you hire anthropologists to study your end users and understand them kind of ties into maybe a broader perspective and a broader picture of how maybe someone who is a kata learner receives a challenge. So I was curious if you could talk a little bit more about the development that you have of taking the research that you do with the anthropologists and developing these challenges, these target conditions into the different projects you have. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
so thank you. One of the key elements of high-tech anthropology is the anthropologists encompass a whole bunch of roles that are traditionally split across several humans in most software teams. So some of the work we've talked about is kind of the discovery work that business researchers do or business analysts would do. And then eventually business analysts start creating these amorphous use cases that user experience designers begin to draw pictures of. And then, maybe you've turned it over to a bit of a graphic specialist that takes it and makes it prettier and the right colors and that sort of thing. Our anthropologists are expected to be able to do all of those things. Now, they won't necessarily do all of them perfectly well, so we pair our anthropologists as well. But by carrying those buckets of water from discovery all the way to pixel perfect screen design, the anthropologists are literally, one of their jobs is to create prototypes out of the work that we're doing and then testing those prototypes against the end user population. So before we're even writing a single line of code, we pretty much certain that we have captured the exact right user experience that then our programmers can turn into working software. And then the process we use to develop the software, you saw an element of it in that work authorization board, is a weekly iterative practice that ends each week with a show and tell that may include end users, may not, depends on the client itself and the nature of the project. But while the software itself is being developed, our basic assumption is we're still wrong. Let's be wrong as quickly as possible. This is our make mistakes sooner philosophy that says, look, if we get something wrong on Monday, but on Friday we're finding out it's wrong, Nobody's going to get too upset about that. If we get something wrong on February 13th and nobody finds out it's wrong till July 13th, whew, people get really upset about that because there's so much water over the dam. And so what eventually happens in most software teams is people are like, oh, it's fine. We'll learn to live with it. For goodness sakes, we can't go back and change it now. We've built so many assumptions around this. And that's where a lot of software projects go very, very poorly.
Sounds a lot like one by one flow with continuous confirmation.
That's what I love about hanging out with you guys is you give me great phrases to use.
Yeah. Laurel.
Hello again. Rich, I've used your video called Joy Inc. from the Vital Smarts Reach conference
Oh yeah,
for
that
it
was a
turns
favorite.
out 11 years now. I just went back and looked at when it was published. Whenever I'm teaching leaders about lean, as the intro to psychological safety and systems thinking and those concepts,
That was
and
my
really
fear
believe that
talk.
Yeah.
psychological safety has to be that's the safety net, literally, under which all of our lean, methods work. But I'm wondering, as a coach, because we're on a coaching call, how do you and your managers balance that with the accountability, the follow through, driving towards results in the end?
Yeah, I mean, as I'm sure you all know, none of this is easy, and none of it is you just snap your fingers and it all falls into place. You develop things over time. One of the things we've learned to do is sometimes building simple constructs in, kind of the go-to phrases that people can use. So, for example, a simple thing in our world is, you saw those cards that, one of the cards had a 2 hour estimate on it. That's the people doing the work saying, we think if you give us this card, we'll be able to get it done in 2 hours.
And to be clear, that's not when can you have it done? That's how long will it take, which are very different
Yes,
questions.
yes, it is. Yes, thank you. Um, and uh, and so, but let's say they start on the card and they're an hour into it, and suddenly they realize, oh my gosh, now that we're into it, this is no longer a 2 hour card. This is an 8 hour card, 4 times as big as we thought it was going to be. Right there is the rub of fear that can enter into most organizations. Um, we've taught our team members two things. One is, as soon as you know, go tell somebody. And typically, the person you're going to tell is your project manager because they're the ones maintaining the relationship with the client. They've gone through the planning game. The client selected this card at 2 hours. They might not have selected it at 8. But as soon as you know, go tell them. But what happens next is critical to keep information flowing. And this is a little bit of like and-on chord kind of thinking. The project managers, we have to teach that when that information is shared, to literally smile and say thank you for sharing that information. And not grimace smile, but truly smile and say thank you. To acknowledge that sharing a mistake is hard and that sharing it early is really important. So let's value that. And there has to be empathy on the other side of the equation as well. And that is, gosh, we may have made the project manager have to go back and tell this to the customer, right? Because, if it's a big enough delta, we got to share that with the customer because they may not want us to continue working on the card. And our team recognizes that when a project manager goes and tells the customer hasn't been taught by us to behave that way, right? So the project manager may have a very difficult discussion. So when you start to care for each other, and one of our core elements of building an intentionally joyful culture, one of the points of 6 there is care for each other. Care up to the top, care down to the front line, care across to your peers. Recognize that if simply we took everybody off the hook of, don't worry, you don't have to meet your estimates, and there's no accountability. And or worse, it doesn't really matter here if you don't meet your estimates because there's people here who take care of the really difficult customer conversations that we don't need to worry about. Now, one of the accountabilities in the process itself, though, and there's a couple of things to talk about. I think I talked about this in that Reach talk. One is I'm accountable for creating a system that gives people the amount of time they need or ask for. as opposed to the stupid way I used to manage people, which was number one by percentages. You're 20% on the Harrison project, you're 50% on the Patterson project, you're 20% on the Ovis project, you're 15%. No, humans can't manage their percentages. That's just impossible. And number two, my old life taught me, oh, make sure you book everybody at least 130% because that's just good people management. And then you wonder why people aren't getting everything done, and then you yell at them because of it. And so, I have an accountability to the team. And then the second piece is by the time the show and tell comes a week later, all data is going to be shared with the customers to what got done and what didn't. They planned it with us. We executed on the plan. We're sharing the results of that plan a week later. Now, again, by doing it week by week, emotions typically don't get that high.
Yeah.
But, customers still be disappointed. When we're in show and tell, everybody who worked on the project that week is in the show and tell. We're not sending the project management emissary off to have a one-on-one meeting with the client. Everybody in there is feeling the emotions of the situation. They feel personally responsible for delivering. And in this way, you're building a set of accountability across the team that says, oh, we're all in this together. Uh, this isn't like we just let the project manager have all the difficult discussions.
So there's a little bit going on in the chat. You probably don't know this, Rich, but almost every week, Mark Rosenthal says something that causes everyone to pick up their pen and write it down. And so Darren has just said that you get the quote of the week, Rich, that you are accountable for creating the system that
Mhm.
gives them the amount of time they need. So that's a big honor as a guest, to get the quote of the week. And Mark will now be challenged with upping you on the quote of the week for sure.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? Let's say I come in and I say, to one of you, Tracy, I need you to get this done by Wednesday.
Right.
Right. And think of that simple kind of managerial statement. Hey, Tracy, we got something really important down to, I need you to get this done by Wednesday. A reasonable request back from you to me that often doesn't occur in a managerial empower imbalance is, okay, Rich, but what about all the other things you
Yeah,
want
what
me
do
to
you
get
want me to
done?
not do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, or, what do you want me to set aside? And if you said that to me in a traditional managerial hierarchy, I might look at you and say, "But Tracy, you got to get all that done too."
Yes, you can't cut it. Right.
Right. I mean, I used to have a boss, a really good boss, who would say to me, Rich, pretend we took everything off of your plate and you only had this one thing to do. When could it be done? And I said, well, gosh, if there was nothing on my plate, I could get it done by, the 4th of April. Awesome. Go get it done. And then I'd look at him and say, well, what about all that other stuff though? Oh, no, you got to get that done too. But I just
Yeah.
wanted to get a date out of you. And I'm like, what? We literally worked with a client once where they told our team because we were collaborating. One of the beautiful parts of pairing is half of the pair could be our clients' people, right? We can pair with client developers, and we often do. And their people told us in no uncertain terms again and again, don't you ever mention hours, how long something's going to take, or dates. Never.
Mm. Mm.
And it was clear we were in a fear-based system that they got punished anytime they missed any of that. And I don't know how much you guys know about the agile software world, but when you get into those fear-based environments, you start hearing things like story points and gummy bears and velocity and all these kind of weird words that mean very little other than we're not going to tell you anything. We're just going to make up alternative reality systems that allow us to hide behind them. Because if we told you the reality stuff, you'll punish us for it every time we miss.
Sam, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. What you talked about there, Rich, with you have the meeting with everybody that's involved with the project with the customer. I think like thinking about that like at a, like imagine like GE Aerospace or something like that is doing that. I'm just wondering about the scalability of like I appreciate the framework because then like if I'm on the front line, I feel like the joy and the pain of delivering it or oh okay. How do you see that in terms of scalability, that kind of frame of reference or operating system? way of operating?
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to talk about some of the scale of some of these meetings because sometimes we'll have, virtually, of course, now 50 or 60 people in those meetings, a dozen from our side, and 48 project sponsors who are in there caring about what the outcome is. Uh, but what I will say is what I've seen from a scalability standpoint is that even in the largest organizations, most of the work is done in little 50-person units. And what I would say is that those units would be presenting their work as part of a larger total effort. And I would say the joy part for our team is the part you alluded to is they get to see in the moment the client's reactions to the work we got done. Now, the reaction could be ho hum. Yeah, that was good. Kind of what I expected. It could be delight. Oh my God, I can't believe you guys got that done. Could be disappointment. That's what you thought we meant. It's not what we meant at all. We want all of those emotions shared during the meeting. One of the ways we got to this, and this is a subtlety, but probably important for me to say in a group like this, we used to be the people showing the customer what we did, show and tell. About 10 years ago, we started noticing this pattern where customers with devices, if you're ever in a meeting and people are just playing with their phones and checking their email and everything. And then a week later, the customer would say something like, "Hey, how'd that feature development go that we planned a couple of weeks ago?" And we're like, "Oh, we showed it to you last week." "You did? Oh, I don't remember seeing it. Could you show it to me again?" And we realized we were losing the audience at our show and tell. We made one simple change at that point. We put the customer's hands on the keyboard and mouse. We had them show us the work we did the previous 5 days. We don't show it to them now. They show it to us. And that made a huge difference and really tightened up the relationship between our client and our team.
So the other thing that does is a better check, right? Because what did I expect? Well, I expect that they'll be able to do this, this, and this. Well, what actually happened? Well, it was more confusing than we thought because they had to ask us what to do next. That's critical information. What did we learn? Well, maybe that UI isn't as intuitive as we wanted it to be.
Yep.
We all have to plan for distractions, right? That people are, in fact, on their phone or on their email. That's a really great idea to put their hands on the computer keyboard. Please
Yeah,
do.
Matt.
And I see Matt has answered the call.
I'm gonna go. I was in my
Matt
car
from
before.
Matt is
Boston.
BI director at BJ's Warehouse, just so
Yes.
Yeah.
Rich, I did have a call a little while ago. Mark, you hooked us
that's
up. So
right.
good to see you
Yeah.
again, Rich. So bring it all back. Like, I think a bunch of things we heard from you. I love your 25 split of career. Like there was an old way, there was a new way. You've clearly grown to build a great company, which I'm assuming inside of there is a great culture around problem solving. And I think a lot of experimentation and scientific thinking. So I see Mark sitting next to you, and a question that we have as other practitioners that are trying to help either good companies become great, and that is convincing them, let's do more scientific thinking and things like kata, but basically driving towards scientific thinking. Where are you guys? Like, what's your challenge, I guess, at the moment around trying to develop problem solving? And where are you guys at with this? Obviously, you and Mark hang out a lot, so I'm assuming you're trying to improve something. Like, how would you describe your scientific thinking journey challenge right now? What are you guys trying to do?
Yeah, well, I will tell you the first time Mike Rother walked in our door and started asking me questions about how we think about problem solving, it was the beginning of a journey. Then he introduced me to Mark, and Mark comes in here and watches what we do over, I know it's been almost a decade. And what I will say, obviously we're in a little bit of a special place here in Ann Arbor because people like Mike just walk in whenever they want, and that's good. Or somebody like Mark wants to travel across the country to spend a few days just sitting in our space. I think the key thing for us is being open to having people come in and examine us, give us feedback, challenge us in our thinking. We're implementing EOS right now, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which has a set of meetings that are called L10 meetings. And our team has invited Mark to sit in on those meetings, which is evidence that the tours, you can get a little caught up in the tours thinking, aren't we great? you've come here to learn from us, and we're going to teach you everything we know, and we're amazing, and we could get caught up in not believing we have to change or that there isn't something we could do better than we've done. But by having Mark and Mike and others come in and spend time in our space and start giving us feedback, that gives us a chance to be open to learning new things. And then we're kind of a book culture here too. So there's a lot of books that are floating around all the time. And then one of our key core values here is run the experiment, which is this attitude of taking action versus taking meaning, of actually trying stuff. And because usually what shuts down any kind of continuous improvement thinking inside of an organization is, as soon as somebody has a new idea, it's met with, oh, that won't work here. Well, that's against policy. We tried that 10 years ago. It didn't work then. It won't work now. And as soon as somebody says that, it usually kills a new idea like that, because you're busy, you got emails to answer, you got meetings to go to, you don't have time to fight the battle, you don't have the energy to fight the battle. Here, our answer, if somebody said that, is, well, why don't we try it before we defeat it? Why don't we run the experiment? And what I would say for us is that cataloging the concept of let's run the experiment into the framework of Toyota Kata is an improvement into what does it mean to run an experiment, and how will we know if it's progressing the way we want it to, because experiments don't all work, and they shouldn't. It's got to be learning inside of all that.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Darren asked what's your biggest challenge right now that you face with getting your system to work?
I'll be interested to see what you actually say.
And
I think I know.
You only have to be as honest as you want.
Yeah, no, I mean, so we're a contract consulting firm. So we work an hour, we get paid for an hour. Companies from all over the world come to us to design and develop software for them. And so, the basic challenge is making sure you're balancing the workload with the size of your team, and you don't run out of work too soon. Keep everybody busy type of thing. Right now, we're in the good problem to have space. That is, we're growing like crazy right now. There's been a few subtle shifts we've made both in strategy and execution to get to that point, and it's working, which is delightful. We've run some serious experiments to get to this point, and now the problem has shifted from sales to bringing on new people, and then from people to delivery, getting those people to work in our system to actually deliver the work in a quality way. And we're feeling the strain. For whatever reason, we've hit this magic moment where every one of our existing clients wants the team that's working on their projects to get bigger by a little bit. And we've got new clients showing up wanting us to do more things. But we actually are going to outgrow the building we're in, and we're looking for new space right now. So all good problems to have. But my managerial edict around good problems to have is they feel like good problems for about 5 minutes, and then they're just regular problems. And so we're well into the it's just regular problems phase right now.
Okay, that's a great answer. Okay, Rosenthal, over to you then for perhaps a summary comment.
Honestly, I'm just so happy that this opportunity came up, and I just want to thank Rich for giving us an hour of his time, which is a lot of people are contending for it, and then that was kind of spontaneous, and so I just think that was a great session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, my pleasure to be here with all of you. I've heard so much about this group. I am delighted to have met you.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, everybody who came today. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. I will put out the notes as soon as we're done. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.